He drank everything, but she said safe flight. Was she expecting this?
I'm leaving you for Jackie. We're moving to Spain. I took all the money. Tell me something. What would you do if you read that message while your child was holding your hand? Because that's exactly where Maya Bennett, 34, was standing when her life split in two. Outside Noah's daycare, late afternoon sun, cartoon backpacks swinging past her knees, parents making small talk about snack schedules and weekend soccer, the kind of ordinary scene that makes disaster feel even crueler. Because the world doesn't stop. It never stops. Not for betrayal. Not for humiliation. Not even for a message like that. Maya read it once. Then again. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Then a third time, because her brain kept insisting there had to be another version hidden under the words, a joke, a hack, a mistake. But there it was, plain and vicious, sent from her husband's number. Daniel Bennett, 38, husband of 9 years, father of her son, gone in 3 sentences. Noah tugged her hand. Mommy, are we going home now? And that was the moment that made it real. Not the text, not the words, I took all the money. It was her son's voice, soft and trusting, while her whole body turned cold. Maya looked down at him, his tiny fingers wrapped around hers, his dinosaur shoes dusty from the playground, and she understood something instantly. She did not have the luxury of falling apart. Not here. Not in front of him. Not in front of these parents who were smiling one second and glancing over the next because they could already tell something was wrong. So Maya did something strange. Something that later people would replay in their minds and never fully understand. She typed back, "Safe flight." That was it. No begging. No rage. No, how could you? Just 2 words. Safe flight. And that is where the real story begins, because a woman whose husband has just emptied their account and run off with his mistress is not supposed to respond like that. She's supposed to panic. She's supposed to call the bank, call him, call somebody. She's supposed to break. But Maya went still. Too still. Why? What did she know that Daniel didn't? She slipped her phone into her bag, bent down, and smiled at Noah with a calm so controlled it almost felt unreal. Yeah, baby, we're going home. Her voice didn't shake. That part would matter later. On the walk to the car, the text kept burning in her mind. We're moving to Spain, not visiting, moving. That meant planning. That meant paperwork, passports, tickets, timing. This hadn't been impulsive. Daniel hadn't stormed out after a fight. He had prepared this, carefully, quietly. Right under the same roof where Maya packed Noah's lunches and paid the utility bills and reminded Daniel which day the mortgage came out. Then came the next line in her head like a hammer strike. I took all the money. At the driver's seat, Maya finally let herself look. She opened the banking app with Noah humming to himself in the back seat. Password, Face ID, loading circle. Then the number appeared. $0. Joint checking, empty. Joint savings, empty. For 1 second, one tiny, dangerous second, her chest hollowed out so fast she thought she might black out. The air in the car changed. Everything sharpened, the plastic smell of the seats, the distant bark of a dog in the parking lot, Noah kicking lightly against the back of her chair. Daniel had done it. Or at least he thought he had. Maya closed the app, opened it again. Same result. Now here's the part no one around her could see. Beneath the shock, beneath the hurt, beneath the quiet nausea crawling up her throat, there was something else. Recognition. Because this wasn't the first strange thing. Not even close. For weeks, Daniel had been different. Too cheerful some nights, too distracted on others, guarding his phone, taking work calls outside, becoming weirdly interested in financial details he used to ignore, asking casual questions in that fake light tone people use when they're trying not to sound deliberate. How fast do transfers usually clear? Did Maya ever update their account login? Was all their emergency money still in the same place? At the time, each question had felt small, annoying maybe, off, but small. Now they snapped together. And suddenly the text wasn't just cruel, it was late. Maya started the engine, backed out slowly. Her hands stayed steady on the wheel, but inside, old moments were already rising to the surface. Daniel smiling too quickly. Daniel turning his screen face down. Daniel telling her she worried too much about what ifs. Daniel acting like she was the naive one. She drove home in silence except for Noah's chatter from the back seat, and every mile tightened the knot in her stomach. Because there were still questions. Big ones. Who was Jackie, really? How long had this been going on? How much had Daniel planned? And most importantly, how much did he actually know? Maya pulled into the driveway, cut the engine, and looked at the dark shape of the house that had been hers that morning and now felt like a stage set after the actors had walked off. Then her phone buzzed again. Not a message. A banking notification. And when Maya read that alert, she realized Daniel had made one mistake he could never take back. 3 weeks before he left, something didn't add up. Have you ever noticed the moment when a lie is still small enough to ignore, but too sharp to forget? That's where Maya had been living. It didn't start with a fight. No slammed doors, no dramatic accusations, just shifts. Subtle ones. The kind that slip into your life quietly and sit there, waiting for you to either confront them or explain them away. Daniel had always been predictable. That was part of why she trusted him. Structured job, routine habits. The same coffee every morning, the same complaints about traffic, the same absent-minded way of leaving his keys in the same spot. Then suddenly, that predictability cracked. It started with his phone. Not in an obvious way. He didn't suddenly hide it or change passwords overnight. That would have been too easy. Instead, he became aware of it, always flipping it face down. Taking it with him even for short trips across the house. Smiling at it, sometimes small, private smiles that never reached Maya. Work stuff, he'd say, if she glanced too long. And maybe that could have been true. For a while, Maya told herself it was. Until the night she saw the name. Jackie. It wasn't a full message, just a preview. A lock screen glow when Daniel stepped into the shower and left his phone on the counter. Can't wait to finally... The rest was cut off. Maya hadn't touched the phone. That part mattered. She didn't snoop, didn't scroll, didn't unlock it. She just stood there, staring at those 3 words, feeling something settle deep in her chest. Not panic, not even anger. Recognition. Because when something is real, you don't need proof. You feel the weight of it before the details arrive. From that point on, she started watching. Not obsessively, not dramatically, quietly. Daniel's schedule didn't change, but his presence did. He was physically there, but mentally somewhere else. Conversations became shorter, eye contact faded faster. And yet, strangely, he also became more attentive in bursts. Bringing home dinner, asking about her day, playing with Noah longer than usual. That contradiction, that's what made it worse. Because it wasn't distance, it was performance. And then came the money. Daniel had never cared about their finances beyond broad strokes. That had always been Maya's domain. Bills, savings, emergency funds, she managed it all. He trusted her with it. Or at least, he used to. Then one evening, out of nowhere, he asked, "Hey, how fast do transfers usually go through?" Casual tone, too casual. Maya didn't look up from her laptop. Depends. Internal transfers are instant. External can take a day or 2. He nodded, like he was filing it away. And the savings, that's all accessible from the main account, right? That made her pause. Not visibly, just internally. Yeah, she said slowly. Why? No reason. Just thinking we should maybe consolidate things. Make it simpler. Simpler. That word lingered long after the conversation ended. Because Daniel had never cared about simplifying their finances before. That night, after he fell asleep, Maya stayed awake longer than usual. Not spiraling, not confronting, just thinking. And the next morning, she made a decision. Not an emotional one. A practical one. She went to the bank. In person. The kind of visit people only make when something is about to change. "Hi," she said calmly to the advisor. "I just want to review account access and make a few updates." No accusations, no drama, just paperwork. But beneath that calm surface, Maya was doing something very specific. She was checking what Daniel could do. And more importantly, what he was already preparing to do. It didn't take long to find it. A pending authorization request. Large. Unusual. Flagged. Not blocked, but noted. Daniel hadn't pulled the money yet. But he was getting ready. And that's when the timeline shifted in Maya's mind. Because up until that moment, there was still a chance, however small, that she was wrong. That this was all coincidence. That Jackie was nothing. That Daniel was just distracted. But no, this wasn't distraction. This was preparation. He wasn't thinking about leaving. He was planning his exit. Carefully, quietly, methodically. And suddenly, everything snapped into focus. Maya didn't confront him when she got home. Didn't ask about Jackie. Didn't mention the bank. Instead, she watched him that evening as he sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone, laughing softly at something she couldn't see. She memorized the ease in his posture, the confidence, the certainty that he was in control of how this story would end. And for the first time, Maya allowed herself to think something she hadn't dared to before. What if he wasn't? Over the next few days, she made small adjustments, invisible ones. A new account, in her name only. A quiet transfer, nothing dramatic, just enough to test the process. No alerts triggered. No questions asked. Good. Then another adjustment. And another, always small, always careful. Because this wasn't about stopping Daniel. Not yet. This was about understanding exactly how far he was willing to go. And making sure that when he did, he walked straight into something he didn't see coming. Then, one afternoon, her phone buzzed with a notification. A new update on the pending request. Maya opened it. Read it once, then again, and this time, there was no room for doubt. The amount had changed. Increased. Significantly. Daniel wasn't just leaving. He was about to take everything. And Maya finally understood the full shape of his plan, which meant she could now shape hers. Because if he wanted to empty their life down to zero, she would decide what zero actually meant. The morning he disappeared, everything moved exactly as she expected. What would you do if you knew the exact moment your life was about to be torn apart? Would you stop it, or would you let it happen? Maya woke up before her alarm that morning. No panic, no confusion, just awareness. The kind that sits heavy in your chest before something irreversible unfolds. Beside her, Daniel was already awake, scrolling through his phone, the screen glow reflecting faintly across his face. He didn't notice she was watching him. Or maybe he assumed she wasn't paying attention anymore. Early start, he said casually, standing up and stretching. Got that client meeting downtown. Same tone, same rhythm, the same rehearsed normalcy he'd been using for weeks. Maya sat up slowly. You'll be back late? Probably, he shrugged, already turning away. Don't wait up. And just like that, there it was. No hesitation. No second glance. 9 years reduced to a routine excuse. Okay, she said softly. No suspicion in her voice. No tension. Nothing for him to react to. That mattered. Because Daniel needed to believe everything was still under his control. He moved through the house quickly after that. Shower, coffee, keys, the usual sequence. Except today, there was something different not in what he did, but in how he did it. There was finality in it. He wasn't just leaving for the day. He was leaving for good. Maya stood in the kitchen, watching him from a distance as he slipped on his jacket. For a brief moment, he looked at her, really looked. And something flickered there. Guilt? Doubt? It didn't last. Tell Noah I'll call him later, he said. I will, Maya replied. And then he walked out the door. No dramatic exit. No confession. Just a quiet click as it shut behind him. And that was it. The moment had passed. Or rather, it had begun. Maya didn't move right away. She counted. 5 seconds. 10. 30. Then she walked calmly to the table, picked up her phone, and opened the banking app. There it was. The transfer request no longer pending. Processing. Live. Daniel had done it. Or at least, he thought he had. Maya sat down slowly, her heartbeat steady, her expression unreadable. The numbers on the screen began to shift in real time. Large amounts, moving fast, account to account. Then outward. She watched it happen. Didn't stop it. Didn't call the bank. Didn't intervene. And that's the part most people wouldn't understand. Because everything in that moment screams at you to act, to panic, to block the transaction before it's too late. But Maya, she let it happen. Every dollar, every transfer, every step of Daniel's escape plan unfolding exactly as he intended. Because this wasn't the beginning of the loss. This was the execution of something she had already prepared for. 3 days earlier, she had sat across from a financial advisor in a quiet office, her voice calm, her questions precise. What's the safest way to separate personal funds from a joint account without triggering immediate flags? The advisor had hesitated, then answered carefully. And Maya listened. Learned. Acted. She didn't drain the account. That would have exposed her. Instead, she moved strategically. Quiet transfers. Different timing. Amounts small enough to avoid suspicion, but consistent enough to shift the balance. By the time Daniel initiated his final move, the account was already hollow. What he was taking now, it looked like everything. It wasn't even close. Back in the kitchen, Maya watched the last transaction clear. $0. Again. But this time, it meant something different. She closed the app, exhaled slowly, then stood up and walked to Noah's room. Hey, buddy, she said gently. We're gonna have a different kind of day today. Noah blinked up at her. Are we going to daycare? Maya smiled faintly. Not today. Because today wasn't about routine. Today was about control. An hour later, after breakfast and cartoons and making sure Noah felt safe and normal, Maya stepped into the hallway and made a call. Hi, she said when the line connected. This is Maya Bennett. I'd like to move forward with the filings we discussed. Her tone didn't waver. On the other end, her lawyer, Rebecca Klein, 42, responded immediately. Are you sure you want to proceed today? Maya glanced toward the living room, where Noah was laughing at something on TV. Yes, she said. He's already done it. A pause. Then, all right, we'll file for financial misconduct, asset protection, and emergency custody. I'll also flag the transfer internationally. Good, Maya replied. She ended the call. No hesitation. No second guessing. Then she sat down at her laptop and began compiling everything. Screenshots, transaction histories, dates, times, the message. Every piece of evidence, organized and precise. Because Daniel had made one critical mistake. He thought disappearing would erase accountability. He thought distance meant safety. He thought that once he landed, it would all be over. But Maya wasn't trying to stop him from leaving. She needed him to leave. To cross borders. To move the money. To believe he had won. Because that's when the system would respond. That's when his actions would become traceable, irrefutable, and legally binding. Hours passed. No messages from Daniel. No calls. Just silence. Exactly as expected. By evening, everything was in motion. The filings. The flags. The documentation. All of it timed perfectly. Rebecca called back just before sunset. It's done, she said. But Maya, once this triggers, there's no undoing it. Maya stood by the window, watching the sky darken. I know, she replied quietly. A pause. Then Rebecca asked the one question that mattered. Do you want to notify him now? Maya's gaze didn't shift. Not from the fading light. Not from the stillness of the street outside. Because she already knew the answer. She had known it from the moment she read that message. No, she said, her voice calm, certain, controlled. I want him to land first. 3 days later, his phone finally connected. Have you ever watched someone celebrate too early? That moment right before everything collapses when they're still smiling, still convinced they've won, that's where Daniel Bennett was standing. Barcelona greeted him with sunlight and possibility. Warm air, open streets. The distant hum of a city that didn't know his name, didn't know his past, didn't care about the life he had just abandoned. It felt like freedom. That's what he told himself as he stepped out of the taxi, Jackie beside him, her sunglasses catching the light. We actually did it, she said, a hint of disbelief in her voice, but also excitement. Daniel smiled, not the careful, measured smile Maya had grown used to, but something looser, lighter, almost relieved. Yeah, he said, we did. No more explanations. No more hiding. No more shared accounts or quiet suspicions or watching his words at the dinner table. Just distance. Distance from responsibility. Distance from consequence. At least that's what he believed. The hotel was modern, minimalist, glass, and marble. The kind of place that made everything feel temporary but expensive. They checked in under his name. No hesitation, no fear. Why would there be? As far as Daniel knew, everything had gone exactly to plan. The money was transferred. The message was sent. The past was behind him. Up in the room, Jackie dropped her bag onto the bed and laughed. I still can't believe you just left like that. Daniel loosened his collar, exhaling. There was no other way. That was the story he was sticking to. Clean break. Necessary decision. No room for guilt. Jackie studied him for a moment. And she hasn't tried to call or anything? He shook his head. No, just one message. What did it say? Daniel hesitated for half a second. Then he smirked. Safe flight. Jackie blinked. That's it? Yeah, he said, dismissive. I think she's in shock. That explanation felt good. It made sense. It kept everything simple. Maya, frozen, overwhelmed, too stunned to react. It allowed him to move forward without looking back. They went out that evening, walked the streets, ordered food they didn't finish, took pictures they'd probably never look at again. It all had that surreal edge, like stepping into someone else's life. And for a while, it worked. For a while, Daniel believed it. But reality doesn't disappear. It waits. And sometimes, it waits for the exact moment you feel safest. It was late when they got back to the hotel. Jackie headed for the shower. Daniel tossed his phone onto the nightstand, stretching out on the bed. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, he felt like he could breathe. No tension, no watching his back, no more pretending. Just a clean slate. He reached for his phone, powered it on, and that's when everything stopped. At first, it was just a vibration. Then a flood. Notifications stacked faster than he could process them. Emails, bank alerts, security warnings, missed calls from unknown numbers, messages he didn't recognize. His brow furrowed. What? He sat up, scrolling. Account access restricted. Unusual activity detected. Transaction flagged for review. Immediate action required. Each alert sharper than the last. Each one pulling the ground out from under him. No, he muttered, refreshing the screen like that would fix it. Another notification popped up. International transfer under investigation. Jackie stepped out of the bathroom, towel around her hair. What's going on? Daniel didn't answer right away, because something cold had just settled in his chest. Something unfamiliar. Something he hadn't planned for. I don't know, he said finally, but his voice had changed. The confidence was gone, replaced by something tighter, more fragile. He opened his banking app, or tried to. Access denied. He tried again. Same result. His pulse started to climb. This doesn't make sense, he said, more to himself than to Jackie. It was all cleared, everything went through. Daniel? Jackie's tone shifted. What's happening? He didn't respond, because now he was seeing the emails. Legal language, formal notices, attachments he hadn't opened yet but didn't need to. Words like financial misconduct, asset protection order, custody filing, each one landing heavier than the last. And then, buried between all of it, one message. Simple, direct, from Maya, sent 3 days ago, delivered just now. Daniel stared at it. For a long moment, he didn't move, didn't breathe, because something about the timing felt deliberate. Jackie stepped closer. What is it? He swallowed, then tapped the message. It opened instantly. No long paragraph. No emotional outburst. Just one line. You took what I wanted you to take, now check what you actually own. Daniel froze. Completely. The room felt different. Smaller. Heavier. Because in that single sentence, everything shifted. The plan he thought he executed wasn't his. And for the first time since he got on that plane, Daniel realized something he couldn't ignore anymore. He hadn't escaped. He had walked straight into something. Something precise. Something intentional. something Maya had been building long before he ever sent that message. And whatever it was already closing in. You took what I wanted you to take, now check what you actually own. That line didn't just sit on Daniel's screen, it unraveled him. Because for the first time since this began, he wasn't reacting with confidence. He was reacting with uncertainty. What does that mean? Jackie asked, her voice tighter now, the excitement from earlier completely gone. Daniel didn't answer. He couldn't. Because his hands were already moving fast, frantic, trying to open accounts, refresh balances, access anything that would prove this was just some temporary glitch. It wasn't. Every path led to the same wall. Access denied. Restricted. Under review. His checking account frozen. Savings flagged. Transfer under investigation. The money he thought he had safely moved across borders, locked in a system he no longer controlled. No, he muttered, shaking his head. This doesn't make sense. I transferred everything. I saw it go through. And that's when it hit him. He saw it go through. But he never verified what was actually there before he took it. Back in the quiet of her home, thousands of miles away, Maya sat at her kitchen table, her laptop open, documents neatly arranged in front of her. No chaos. No panic. Just completion. Because here's what actually happened. 3 days before Daniel left, Maya didn't just suspect him. She confirmed him. The pending transfer, the behavioral shifts, the questions about timing and access, it all pointed to one thing. Daniel was planning to drain their accounts and disappear. So Maya made a decision that flipped the entire situation. She didn't stop him. She reframed the board. Instead of blocking his move, she prepared for it. Carefully, legally, precisely. She transferred 80% of their total assets into a separate account under her name, an account Daniel had no access to and, more importantly, didn't even know existed. Not because she hid it recklessly, but because she created it within her legal rights, structuring it in a way that protected those funds as individual holdings. The remaining 20%? She left it. Untouched, visible, available, waiting, because she needed Daniel to believe one thing, that he was taking everything. But there was another layer. Maya had already contacted her bank and flagged concerns about unusual financial behavior, not an accusation, but enough to put a quiet watch on large transfers. So when Daniel executed his plan, moving a significant sum internationally, rapidly, and without her consent, it triggered exactly what Maya knew it would. Fraud detection protocols, automatic flags, account restrictions. And once those flags escalated across borders, everything slowed down, locked down, investigated. Daniel didn't escape with the money. He trapped himself with it. Back in Barcelona, that reality was crashing down in real time. They froze it, he said, his voice hollow now. All of it. I can't access anything. Jackie stared at him. What do you mean you can't access it? I mean, it's gone, he snapped, then immediately corrected himself. Not gone, just locked. For now. For now, she repeated, her tone sharpening. Daniel, we just moved to another country. For now doesn't work here. The tension between them shifted instantly. Because this wasn't the plan she agreed to. This wasn't freedom. This was instability. And Daniel could feel it slipping. She filed something, he said, scrolling through the legal notice again. Financial misconduct, asset protection. Jackie's expression changed. So she's coming after you? He didn't answer. Because the truth was worse. Maya wasn't coming after him. She had already moved ahead of him. Back home, Maya closed her laptop as her lawyer, Rebecca Klein, finalized the last confirmations. It's all in motion, Rebecca said. The international flag strengthens your position, and with the abandonment plus financial activity, custody is heavily in your favor. Maya nodded once. Good. No celebration. No dramatic relief. Just quiet acknowledgement. Are you okay? Rebecca asked. Maya paused, and for the first time in days, she let herself feel it. Not the anger, not the betrayal, but the release. He thought I wouldn't see it coming, she said softly. That's the part I can't stop thinking about. Rebecca gave a small, knowing nod. He underestimated you. Yes, Maya replied. He did. And that was the truth at the center of everything. Daniel didn't fail because he tried to leave. He failed because he assumed Maya wouldn't prepare. The days that followed made everything clearer. Daniel was formally notified of the legal actions. He was required to respond. His access to funds remained restricted pending investigation. Returning to the country became unavoidable, not optional if he wanted any chance of resolving it. Jackie? She didn't stay long. The pressure, the uncertainty, the financial reality, it wasn't what she signed up for. Whatever version of Daniel she believed in didn't survive contact with consequences. Within weeks, she was gone. And Daniel was left exactly where he never expected to be. Not free. Not wealthy. Not in control. Just accountable. Meanwhile, Maya's life didn't transform overnight into something perfect. It became something else. Stable, clear, defined on her terms. She was granted primary custody of Noah, supported by the documented abandonment and financial misconduct. The majority of their assets remained legally protected under her control. The house stayed. The routines returned. But this time, without the quiet tension she hadn't fully noticed before. And then, one morning, weeks later, Maya stood outside the same daycare. Same building. Same sidewalk. Same morning light. Noah's hand in hers. Only this time, there was no weight pressing against her chest. No unread message waiting to detonate her world. Just quiet. "Mommy?" Noah said, looking up at her. "Are you coming back later?" Maya smiled, brushing his hair back gently. "Always." He ran inside. And Maya stood there for a moment longer, breathing in a life that, while not untouched, was now entirely hers again. Her phone buzzed. She glanced down. An unknown number. She didn't need to guess who it was. Daniel. For a second, she just looked at it. Not angry. Not shaken. Just distant. And she silenced the notification. Slipped the phone back into her bag. And turned away. Because the story didn't end when he left. It ended when she no longer needed to respond. In that moment, that quiet, ordinary morning, that was hers.
So tell me, was this revenge, or did she plan everything long before he left?